The laughing crowd in the middle of a busy alien city. A crowd had gathered. The tall buildings around the square glowed with strange lights. Alien voices filled the air, loud, sharp, and cruel. In the center of it all stood a young alien girl, named Vetra. Her skin was light blue and her eyes were soft and tired. She was not like the others. Her body was thinner, her horns shorter. Her clothes were simple, torn in some places. She kept her head down as the crowd shouted at her. Shame on her. Weak blood. Coward. Some threw garbage. Others pointed their glowing screens, recording her shame like it was entertainment. Vetra didn't cry. She had cried too many times before. Now she just stood there silent, taking the hate like she had always done. Among the crowd, no one cared. No one helped, until one figure stepped forward. He was not from this world. He was a human. He wore dark clothes, a hood over his head, and his boots were covered in dust from travel. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp. He moved slowly, with purpose. The crowd started to notice him. Some laughed, others frowned. Look, a human. Lost your way, skin creature? Go back to your dirty planet. But the man didn't answer. He looked at Vetra. Then he looked at the ones throwing trash. His hands stayed by his sides. No fear, no smile, just silence. Vetra looked up for the first time. Her eyes met his. She expected him to laugh, or to walk away. But he didn't. He walked right up to her, through the angry voices, and stopped only a few feet away. The crowd went quiet for a moment. They were waiting for something. Then the human spoke. His voice was calm but clear. You okay? Just 2 words. That was all he said. Vetra blinked. She didn't know how to answer. No one had asked her that in years. No one had cared. Before she could speak, an alien stepped forward. He was tall, with dark green armor and sharp teeth. He was a warrior. This is our matter, human, the alien growled. Go away. The human looked at him. No anger, no fear. Your matter? He asked. You call this honor? The alien stepped closer, now angry. The crowd started cheering, again hoping for a fight. You don't know our ways, the warrior said. This girl is weak. She brings shame to our kind. We are warriors. We don't protect cowards. The human nodded slowly. Then he knelt down and picked up a rock from the ground. Just a small, dusty stone. The crowd went quiet again. The warrior laughed. What? You throw stones now? But the human didn't throw it. He just held it. He looked at the rock, then at the crowd. Where I come from, he said. We don't hurt the ones who are already down. He placed the rock in Vetra's hand and closed her fingers around it. Stand, he said. She looked at him. Something in his voice was not a command. It was something else. Respect, strength. She stood. Slowly. The crowd didn't like it. They shouted again, louder than before. The warrior stepped forward, ready to fight. You protect her? Then you fall with her. But the human smiled for the first time. Just a little. I don't fall, he said. I teach others how to stand. The warrior moved fast, trying to punch the human, but the man dodged easily. His movements were smooth, trained, deadly. One strike. The alien warrior fell to the ground, groaning in pain. The crowd gasped. Vetra stood frozen. What had just happened? The human turned back to her. Next time, don't wait for someone like me, he said softly. You have power too. You just forgot it. He began to walk away, leaving silence behind him. Some of the crowd stepped back. Some looked down in shame. Others stared at Vetra, unsure what to think now. She stood taller than before. Not proud, but not broken. She still held the small stone in her hand. Something inside her had changed. Something had begun. The human stranger. The square was quiet now. The crowd that once laughed had gone still, unsure of what they had witnessed. The warrior lay on the ground, groaning in pain. His pride was broken, but his body would heal. What wouldn't heal was the silence, the kind that comes after something unbelievable happens. And in the center of that silence stood the human. He didn't smile. He didn't raise his hands or shout in victory. He simply turned his back to the fallen warrior and walked away like it was just another day. Vetra watched him, frozen. Her heart was beating fast, but not from fear. It was something else, something new. No one had ever stood for her. No one had ever dared to challenge the crowd, and no one, ever, had defeated one of her people in front of so many and walked away so calmly. She gripped the stone tightly in her hand. She had to follow him. The human walked down the metal streets of the alien city. The towers around him were alive with lights, and strange vehicles flew overhead, but he didn't look up. His steps were steady. His mind was focused. He could hear footsteps behind him, light, careful. She was following. He waited until they reached a quieter street, narrow, lined with food stalls and steam vents. Then he stopped. "Why are you following me?" he asked, without turning. Vetra stepped back, unsure for a moment, but then she spoke. "Who are you?" she asked. "Why did you help me?" The man turned slowly. His face was calm, but his eyes were sharp, and the kind of eyes that had seen too many battles. "Name's Jack," he said. "Jack Ryden, human, soldier, traveler. But you don't know me," she said. "Why would you care?" Jack looked at her for a long moment. Then he said something that Vetra would remember for the rest of her life. "I don't need to know someone to know when something's wrong." Those words hit her harder than any insult the crowd ever threw. They sat on a bench under a broken light. Vetra still didn't trust him completely, but something about him made her feel safe. Not like she was being saved, but like she was being seen. "You fought like one of us," she said. "But your body, it's weaker, slower. You shouldn't have won." Jack shrugged. "Fighting's not about strength, it's about knowing where to strike, when to move, and what you're willing to protect." Vetra looked down. "They hate me because I didn't fight, because I let a prisoner go once, a weak one. They said I was soft. I was supposed to be a warrior. I failed." Jack leaned back. "Sounds like you were stronger than they ever were. Mercy takes guts." She stared at him. "Why are humans like this?" Jack gave a small smile. "Because we had to be. Earth taught us that kindness doesn't mean weakness. It means you choose not to become a monster even when you can." But they weren't alone. From above, in the shadows of the towers, eyes were watching. The fight in the square had been recorded, shared. It had reached the wrong people. Jack Ryden had become a name to watch. And Vetra, a traitor, a symbol of shame who was now gaining attention. And worse, respect. Orders were sent. They must be silenced. That night, Jack and Vetra walked to an old warehouse where Jack had set up camp. It was small, with a few crates, a cooking unit, and a folded blanket on the ground. "Nothing fancy." "You live here?" she asked. "Don't need much," he replied. "Just a place to rest and room to think." She sat across from him. "Teach me." "Teach you what?" "How to fight like you, how to stand like you, how to make them stop laughing." Jack was quiet for a moment. Then he nodded. "I'll teach you, but not to get revenge, not to make them fear you." "Then why?" she asked. "So they never hurt you again. And more than that, so you never believe their lies again." But just outside, a small red light blinked on a nearby wall. A drone. Recording. Sending everything back to someone dangerous. In the darkness of the city, plans were forming. And soon Jack and Vetra would learn that this was more than just bullying. It was war. The warrior test. 3 days passed. The city had started whispering. In the back alleys, in military training halls, in markets and mess halls, the same name kept returning. Jack Ryden. The human who beat Commander Targus in one strike. The human who walked through a warrior crowd and made them silent. and beside his name another word now traveled like a silent flame. Vetra. Some called her the Fallen One. Others now called her the Girl Who Rose. Not everyone was happy. In a high tower above the city, a council of alien warlords watched footage of Jack's fight. The screen flickered as Jack dodged the strike and knocked Targus down. He embarrassed us, one of them hissed. He's a problem, another growled. A third narrowed his 4 yellow eyes. He must be tested, properly. No tricks, no crowds. He wants to protect her, let him prove it. In the pit. Back at the warehouse, Jack trained Vetra from morning to night, not just with fists and weapons, but with her mind. He made her stand in silence for an hour, breathing slowly. "What is this for?" she asked. "To learn calm in chaos," Jack answered. Then he dropped a stone near her foot. "What does this teach?" she asked again. "To notice everything," he said. "Because even the smallest sound can save your life." They trained, with wooden staffs, with sharp words, with truth. She stumbled. He waited. She cried. He said nothing, until she stopped waiting for his help and stood on her own. One evening, a message arrived. A hologram floated from a small device placed outside their warehouse door. Jack pressed play. A soldier in black armor appeared, eyes glowing from behind a metal mask. "You, human, you are invited to prove yourself," the voice said. "Our customs demand a challenge tomorrow, at dawn, in the pit. If you do not come, the girl suffers in your place." The message ended. Vetra looked at Jack, her breath sharp. "It's a trap." Jack nodded. "Of course it is." "So what do we do?" she asked. He stood up slowly, picked up his jacket, tightened his boots. "We go." The pit was not a stadium. It was ancient, carved deep into the stone beneath the city. It was once used for blood rituals and old warrior rites. Now it was used for punishment. Vetra and Jack stood on the edge. The walls were lined with soldiers and nobles. No cheers, no announcements, just eyes watching. The warlord stepped forward. His name was General Krovax, a monster of muscle, scars, and pride. 10 feet tall, hammer fists, spiked armor. "You are the human," Krovax said. "You've got eyes." Jack replied casually. Vetra tried to hide her fear, but Jack saw it. He gave her a small nod. "Remember what I said," he whispered. "The crowd means nothing. Your heartbeat is your weapon." Then, he stepped into the pit. The match began without warning. Krovax charged like a beast shaking the ground. Jack dodged, once, twice. Then he slid beneath the alien's legs and struck the back of his knee. Krovax roared, but Jack was already moving. He wasn't stronger, but he was faster, smarter. He didn't waste movement. He didn't show off. He survived. Every strike from Krovax was heavy. If even one hit Jack fully, he would break. But Jack had trained on Earth, against machines, against bombs, against armies, and he had trained for war, not for show. Minutes passed. Blood was drawn. Jack bled from his lip. Krovax had a deep cut on his side. The crowd grew louder. Vetra couldn't breathe. She felt helpless, like she used to, but then she remembered his words. "Don't wait to be saved, stand." She stepped forward and shouted from the edge, "Jack, remember the second stance." Jack heard her, and smiled. The second stance was low, defensive, waiting. Jack dropped. His body focused his energy, and waited. Krovax charged one final time. Jack let him come, and then, at the perfect moment, he shifted his weight, spun behind the general, and struck a nerve behind the alien's ear. Krovax crashed to the ground, unmoving. The pit was silent. Jack didn't raise his fist. He just looked at the warlords. "Is this enough?" he asked. One of them stood. "No, it's too much." Suddenly, 5 armored guards dropped into the pit. "Traitors," Vetra whispered. "They never wanted a fair fight." Jack looked up at her. Get ready to run, he said. What about you? She asked. He smiled. I'll give them something else to remember. As Vetra turned to escape, the sounds of battle exploded behind. Her Jack against 5 trained alien guards, 1 man, 1 mission, 1 message. Never underestimate a human. Her secret passed. The pit was silent now. The crowd had vanished. The blood had dried. And Jack Ryden, the human who defied a warrior empire, was gone. Captured. Taken while Vetra escaped through the underground tunnels beneath the arena. He had stayed behind to give her time, to protect her, to make a point. Now she was alone again. But this time, it felt different. This time she wasn't running in fear. She was running with purpose. Vetra moved through the city's lower levels, old rusted tunnels that even the guards avoided. She found shelter in a forgotten cargo chamber filled with dust, broken tech, and silence. As she sat down and caught her breath, her thoughts drifted back. Not to Jack, but to a memory she had buried deep. The day everything changed. The day she became a disgrace. 3 years ago. The air was cold in the academy training hall. Young warriors stood in rows, tall and proud. Vetra stood among them, back straight, armor shining. She had been one of the best, fast, sharp, loyal. But then came Trial 7, a final test before full warrior rank. The mission, enter a captured vessel. Eliminate all threats, no mercy, no hesitation. But inside that ship, Vetra found more than targets. She found a wounded enemy soldier, young, unarmed, terrified, barely older than a child. He looked at her and whispered, "Please." And she froze. In that moment, her heart fought her training. She lowered her blade, stepped back, and let him go. The council found out, of course. She was dragged in front of the elders, stripped of her rank, and branded a traitor to her people. They didn't care that she had shown mercy, that she had followed her soul, not her orders. You let weakness guide you, they said. You are not one of us anymore. From that day, she had become a ghost, mocked, avoided, spat on. She walked among her own kind like a shadow no one wanted to see. And for a long time she believed them that she had failed, that she was weak, until Jack came, until a stranger from a world she had never seen reminded her that what she did that day was not failure. It was strength. Back in the present, Vetra stood up. The quiet chamber around her seemed to pulse with a new energy. She picked up a small piece of metal and carved something into the wall. Mercy is not weakness. Then she looked up toward the city, toward the tower where Jack was likely being held. She had escaped alone once before. Not this time. This time she would return. Somewhere above, Jack sat in a dark cell, arms chained behind his back. A guard entered and dropped a plate of food in front of him. Your little friend is gone, the guard sneered. Ran the moment. You went down, Jack smirked. You don't know her at all, the guard laughed. She was soft. That's why you lost. Jack leaned forward, eyes sharp. I didn't lose. I chose to stay. That's what humans do. Then he whispered, almost like a promise, and she's coming back. Meanwhile, Vetra climbed up into the light of the city, her hood pulled low. The streets were dangerous now. She was a wanted name, and Jack was being used as bait. But she wasn't afraid. She had been a student once. Now she was becoming something else. A spark. A symbol. A warrior. Not because she killed, but because she refused to kneel. As she reached the outskirts of the military tower, a group of rebels in hiding spotted her. They had heard the story. The humans' stand. The girls' escape. One of them stepped forward. Are you the one they call disgrace? She looked him in the eye. Not anymore. Another stepped up beside him. You want to save the human? She nodded. He smiled. Good. We've been waiting for a reason to fight. That night, In the dark corners of the city, word spread again. The disgrace had returned, and this time she wasn't alone. Enemies in the shadows, the city never truly slept. Even in the dead of night, its towers pulsed with soft blue lights. Drones floated silently between buildings. Whispering screens blinked with military alerts. And in the shadows, something darker stirred, watching, planning. Vetra moved like a ghost through the alleyways. Her face was hidden beneath a stolen cloak, but her steps were no longer unsure. She wasn't running anymore. She was hunting. She had gathered a small group now: outcasts, blacklisted engineers, ex-soldiers, and even one old academy friend who had once turned away when Vetra fell from grace. Now they stood behind her, not because of who she was, but because of what she had become: a symbol, a reason to resist. But even as they prepared to infiltrate the military tower and rescue Jack, Vetra couldn't shake a question that burned in her chest like a fire. Why was she really punished? Because she spared a child? Or was there more? They met with a former intelligence officer named Kale, a scarred, quiet man who had worked in the shadows of the government before he disappeared. He didn't speak much, but when Vetra asked about Jack's capture and about her own exile, he only said one thing: "You were never punished for mercy. You were punished for what you knew." Vetra frowned. "I didn't know anything." Kale looked at her with tired eyes. "But you saw something, and they made sure you wouldn't remember." That night, Kale took her deep underground, into a sealed vault that once belonged to the Academy's Black Files division. He showed her a recording. A hidden file long thought deleted. It was footage from Trial 7. But not just her mission. It showed another squad, an elite team, in the same mission zone, executing not just soldiers but civilians, families, children, and then a face: General Krovax, the very same who challenged Jack in the pit. He was there, giving the order, smiling as innocents were slaughtered. Vetra shook, her body tense. "I never saw this." Kale nodded. "You did. They wiped your memory. During your punishment. They didn't want you to remember what your trial really exposed. They used the child you spared as a cover story. But they exiled you because you almost uncovered a war crime." Everything shifted. Her shame had never been hers. She had been loyal, too loyal. She hadn't failed her people. Her people had failed her, and now they had Jack, the only person who had seen her for who she truly was. Vetra returned to her team that night, her hands shaking, her eyes burning with quiet fury. "We're not just saving a human," she said. "We're exposing the truth." Her old academy friend, a quiet woman named Reka, spoke up. "You really believe the city will listen? After everything?" Vetra looked toward the tower glowing in the distance. "They won't listen." She paused. "But they will feel it." Meanwhile, inside the prison tower, Jack Ryden was not sitting idle. Though his hands were still chained and his face bruised, he had spent the past day mapping every sound, every guard pattern, and every flaw in the security rhythm. Pain he could handle, silence he could endure. But the waiting, the knowledge that Vetra was out there risking everything, that was what made his blood boil. Still, something else bothered him. The guards were afraid of him, not mocking, afraid. One even whispered to another, "He's not just some human. He's Project Blackglass." Jack heard it. He remembered the name. Blackglass was an Earth experiment, one Jack had once been a part of. He had volunteered. Enhanced reflexes, neural combat mapping, strength without implants. But it was shut down. Too dangerous, too unpredictable. Apparently, not shut down enough. They didn't just want to punish Jack. They wanted to study him, weaponize him. Outside the tower, Vetra and her team approached in silence, slipping through tunnels and maintenance hatches. The plan was tight, every movement precise. But Vetra carried more than a rescue mission in her chest. She carried proof, and rage, and truth. As they reached the final door to the prison's control center, she paused. No more shadows, she whispered. Then she opened the door with a blast of light and fire. Inside, alarms exploded. Guards panicked, and the cameras that once broadcast fear now broadcast her face. To those watching, my name is Vetra. They called me a traitor, but they never told you why. Today, you will learn the truth. She uploaded the file. The war crime, the cover-up, the faces, and across the city, across the galaxy, the lie shattered. Vetra fought like the warrior she was always meant to be. And Jack? He heard the explosion, saw the light, and smiled in the dark. Told you she'd come back, he whispered. But deep below them, in the lower levels of the tower, something else was waking up, something not meant to be seen, something not human, and not entirely alien either. Rise of the human spirit. Smoke rose from the shattered control center. Sirens wailed across the military tower. But inside Vetra's chest, there was only calm fire. She had done it. She had shown the truth. Her voice, once ignored, now echoed across the city. But it wasn't over, not even close. Because what she had just done wasn't just rebellion. It was war. Below the tower, in the darkness of Sector 9, armored guards rushed to lock down the lower floors. But something moved faster than them. Something not human. Not alien either. Something built, engineered, hidden. It had metal bones, smooth gray skin, glowing eyes, and it had just been activated. Project Shade. Awaken, came a voice through a hidden comm system. The experiment rose from its pod. Not quite a machine, not quite alive. Its orders were clear. Eliminate the human asset. Erase the witness. Secure the technology. Jack Ryden didn't know yet what was coming. He only knew the fight wasn't over. When the explosion hit, his guards had panicked. In that confusion, Jack used everything he had learned on Earth's battlefields. He slammed his chained hands against a weak point in the wall, then again, and again. Blood ran down his wrists, his vision blurred, but he didn't stop. Pain was a teacher, and Jack had always been a good student. Finally, snap. The metal cracked. He was free. Vetra and her team moved fast through the upper halls. Her rebels covered her flanks, exchanging fire with enemy squads. Sparks flew, walls cracked, but they kept pushing forward. Then, over the comm, a voice broke through. Weak, but clear. Vetra, it's Jack. Her heart jumped. Jack, where are you? She breathed. Prison floor. Sector 7. I'm moving up. We're coming to you. No, he said. You need to know something first. This tower has a hidden lab, something below. They weren't just holding me. They were studying me. Her eyes narrowed. Why? Because I wasn't just a prisoner, Jack said. I was a test subject. Suddenly the floor under her feet shook. From below, a roar, not mechanical, not natural, something between. Then silence. Then screaming. Down below, guards were being torn apart, some by force, others by fear. Project Shade moved through, the corridors like a ghost, silent, efficient, deadly. It didn't waste bullets. It didn't speak. It simply moved forward, toward Jack, toward Vetra, toward the heart of the uprising. Back in the hallway, Jack grabbed a plasma baton and rushed forward, shoulder bloodied but eyes sharp. He had seen war. He had seen monsters. But this was different. When he turned the corner and saw Project Shade for the first time, he stopped. It looked almost like him. Same height, similar build. But its eyes were cold glass, and its voice was pure static. Target acquired. Failed. Prototype terminating, Jack whispered to himself. So that's what they really wanted. This wasn't about his actions, or even Vetra's rebellion. This was about control. Control over evolution, over fear, over the very idea of humanity. They didn't fear Jack because he was dangerous. They feared him because he chose not to be. Vitra arrived just as the creature lunged. Jack dodged, barely. Sparks flew as shade struck the wall, cracking the steel like paper. "Get out," Jack shouted to her. But Vitra didn't run. She grabbed a fallen soldier's shock rifle, aimed and fired. The bolt hit Shade in the shoulder. It barely flinched. It turned toward her now, cold, calculating. Secondary target identified, the witness. Priority, eliminate. "Not today," Jack growled. He grabbed a steel pipe from the ground and charged. The fight was brutal. Jack wasn't faster, wasn't stronger, but he adapted. Every blow he took, he learned. Every strike he missed, he adjusted. Shade fought like a machine, but Jack fought like a human, with anger, hope, and heart. "This is what you'll never understand," he shouted between blows. "You can copy our muscles, but not our will." With Vetra's help, they forced Shade toward the edge of the elevator shaft. Jack caught its arm, twisted, and shouted, "This is for every soul you silenced." He threw the creature over the edge. Down it fell, screaming and static, gone for now. Silence returned. Jack and Vatra stood over the pit, breathing hard. "That thing," she whispered. "It was made from you?" Jack nodded slowly. "They didn't just want to use me. They wanted to replace me." She looked at him. The bruises, the cuts, the fire in his eyes. They failed. He smiled. "No machine will ever replace this." Outside, the tower's power grid began to fail. The rebels had planted the final charges. Vitra turned to Jack. "We need to go. The tower's coming down." But he stopped her. "Not yet." He turned to the control room and pressed the comm channel open. Across every screen, every building, every device in the city, his voice echoed. "My name is Jack Ryden. I'm human. I was captured, studied, copied, but not broken. You tried to erase me, but you made me stronger. And now we're done being silent. We are more than weapons, more than orders. We are spirit, and spirit doesn't break. It rises." Outside, crowds watched. Some still scared, some still silent. But in the silence, others began to stand. Old soldiers, shamed citizens, fallen warriors. They stood for Jack, for Vatra, for the truth, and for something long forgotten. Hope. They will never laugh again. The tower burned. Smoke curled high into the alien sky, turning it gray. The people below didn't run. They didn't hide. They watched. Because in that fire was something more than destruction. It was a message. They tried to erase her. They tried to break him. But both stood tall. Together. Vitra stood beside Jack on the ridge above the city. They were tired, bruised, bloodied, but their eyes were steady, their hands firm. Behind them, dozens of rebels stood, and behind those rebels, thousands more were starting to gather. Ordinary citizens, former soldiers, workers, disgraced students, forgotten names. They had heard the truth. They had seen courage, and now they had a choice. But in the high citadel across the sky bridge, the ruling council wasn't finished. From a secure room surrounded by elite guards, High Commander Celux watched the chaos unfold. "Fools," he spat. "They follow children and a broken human." One of his advisors looked nervous. "The people are rising. We need to act." "No," Celux snapped. "We don't need a speech. We need an example. Capture the girl. Execute the human. In public." Hours later, the Capitol Square was surrounded by war drones and armored patrols. Screens blinked with false alerts. Traitors responsible for terror attack. City in lockdown. Justice will be restored. But even with all the control, something felt different. People were not afraid. They weren't running anymore. They were waiting. Jack and Vatra walked through the underground route toward the main plaza. Their final mission was simple: end the lie, face the tyrants, and show the galaxy who they really were. But as they moved into the open air, dozens of guns locked onto them. The crowd gasped. High Commander Celux appeared on the main platform, armored head to toe, his voice booming across the plaza. You think truth gives you power? He shouted. You think one human and a failed warrior can change thousands of years of rule? Jack stepped forward. No, not just us. He turned, and the crowd behind them began to move forward. One step, then another, and another. Thousands. Unarmed, but not weak, silent but not afraid. Salix growled. Then die like the fools you are. He raised his hand. Snipers took aim. Drones powered up. Then, boom. An explosion rocked the platform. From the rooftops, rebel units dropped smoke bombs. Chaos erupted, but Vetra wasn't looking at the smoke. She was looking straight at Salix. And in that moment, she remembered everything. The academy, the shame, the fear, all built by him. He was the one who covered up the war crimes. He was the one who ordered her punishment. He was the one who tried to bury the truth. She ran, straight toward him. Guards moved to stop her. Jack covered her, firing and dodging. He moved like fire, unpredictable and fast. Vetra reached the platform. Salix pulled his blade, towering over her. You never belonged, he hissed. She didn't answer. She blocked his strike, then hit him. Once, twice, 3 times. He stumbled. She spoke finally. I was made for this moment. He lunged again. She stepped aside, then swept his legs, dropped him to his knees. The crowd watched, breathless. Salix snarled. You're weak. She pressed his own weapon to his throat. No, she whispered. I just chose not to become you. And she let him live. The same mercy they punished her for, she gave again, in front of the world. Salix was dragged away. The guards lowered their weapons. The drones powered down. Silence ruled the square. Then, cheering, loud, raw, human, alien, all together. Jack stood beside her, grinning through the blood. So, you think they're still laughing? Vetra looked up at the sky. Let them. We've already won. Weeks later, the city was rebuilding, not just with stone and metal, but with truth. A new council was forming. Jack was offered a position in planetary defense. He refused. I'm a soldier, not a politician, he said. Vetra became a teacher, not of weapons, but of choice. She taught the next generation what she was never taught. You are not your strength. You are your choices. And across the galaxy, people spoke their names, like legends. Jack Ryden, the human who couldn't be broken. Vetra, the disgrace who rose to lead, no longer mocked, no longer alone. They had rewritten the story.